Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm your host, Charlie Mann of Law Firm Alchemy. I'm really excited for the guest I have today because the first time that we spoke, every now and then you meet people where you're just like, you're speaking my language, and not in the we share an industry and have the same jargon, but in the philosophically there's a lot of alignment. Strategically, there's a lot of alignment, and we're serving the same core audience. And so our conversation today could go in so many different ways. He serves law firm owners, specifically estate planning owners, through the Vertex League, a mastermind program I highly recommend checking out. He's also the VP of Zihmer Law Firm. Andrew Zihmer, thank you so much for being here on the show, my friend.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me in. And yeah, that was the perfect kind of intro of, I think this is going to be part two of a really awesome conversation we had a few weeks ago.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited to spend a little bit of time focusing on the estate planning arena because it's something that doesn't get discussed quite as much. PI, gotta love it. It gets a lot of the online glory. We're going to dig into this transactional side of law. But before we do that, we got to frame this up. What is the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
So from my perspective of a non-attorney, but what I see and observe, it's at the high level, it's the whole business of running a law firm. But when you niche down, it's really, they don't teach you how to get clients, working back how to get leads. Everything starts at doing the work for somebody, and they completely skip over how do you ever start that relationship, getting in front of people? How do you get into sales, close them, and then get to go do all the amazing legal work that they know how to do?
Ooh, Andrew, you're using dirty words like sales and close. Those are not the most fun words, but in the estate planning world, obviously they take on an extra level of importance because it's one of the practice areas where you're going to quote a price. So let's start there with the whole sales and close thing. With you being a non-lawyer, talk about your relationship to that and how you brought that into the firm.
Yeah. So if we go back, Tracy, my awesome wife who owns it, she was in that role and she's really good at it. And it just kind of happened organically where we had been in this phase where we, an admin had left who was doing intake. I was just grabbing phones when I could and would speak to people. And after a couple of weeks, Tracy went, can you start sending engagement letters to these people? They are not sure why they're talking to me. They're just ready to go. Think you figured out sales. And I was like, oh, shoot, I never thought I was going to be in sales. And then here I am. I guess we kind of picked it up. And it was really building relationships with people and just seeing, hey, if there's something we can do, let's find that common ground of how could we help and giving them the different options. And then finding, oh my gosh, well, there's 2 or 3 things we could do. This is what things would cost. Do you want to move forward? And they said, yeah, let's do the darn thing.
Okay, so let's be honest. A lot of estate planners, especially, and I really highlight this, when estate planners have people who are not the owner working on the sales and the closing process, I think that's where a lot of issues tend to arise. Now, you had, we'll call it a built-in advantage, the spouse. So I imagine you have a lot of belief in Tracy, and that probably translated into the calls.
Completely. I'm completely bought in. I mean, my own best interest is served by every new client we get and it being a good fit and building those long-term relationships. So yes, it's not like I'm just kind of coming in from the side. This completely impacts me. The other piece too that I'd highlight is I don't come from estate planning, but I tell people if you could sit on the sofa with us at night and, be there with the glass of wine as we do, you would see how many kind of dumb questions I've asked through the years and just to understand when and why do people do different things. And it's those conversations that have really helped me then be able to just listen and go, look, I can't give the advice. I'm not an attorney, but these are the types of things we help with. You're going to want to work with us.
That is such an interesting. First off, I'm just going to call it an invitation, and yes, I'll join you for a glass of wine on the sofa at some point. Okay, so that is kind of like this hidden superpower. I'm really curious because I know that you all are working continuously to scale the firm, and so scaling sales has to be part of the conversation. What are you doing today, and what do you plan on doing forward to take that like sofa conversation and make it part of the system?
It's building out that conversation over time, right, into kind of a module-based training program where we can get other folks here up to speed where how much information do they really need to know about what we do to then be able to move into a sales role? Because I took it off Tracy and let her really shift into management, executive leadership, and practicing law. Well, kind of where we are now, I take a lot of sales calls throughout the day. And now to the point where the next growth step is me moving into maybe more like a management of a sales team role, and then having, 2 or 3 people kind of working for me to then take that on. And it's how do I take that knowledge and translate it out? We've done iteration 1, which was Tracy to me. Now it has to be, okay, now me to multiple, which we've seen some glimpses of. And it's like you said, it's taking those types of conversations and those learning opportunities and turning it into module-based training and just the on-the-job training to then be able to get other people up to speed on this is what we do, this is how we do it, this is how we price it. Let's go get some people in.
So I'm really curious mathematically when you are starting to bring in, in your case, it's not even non-lawyer salespeople. We'll call them non-Zihmer salespeople, right? Into the firm. Are you preparing or maybe even expecting a lower close rate from those individuals and are building out systems accordingly, or do you expect them to, hit the same types of numbers that you close?
It's a mix. So we get leads multiple ways, right? We do get the traditional referral based, and those are so darn warm. It's kind of hard to screw them up. And I think that's a great place to start, is because there can be an expectation on you should close these really close to the same that I have and that Tracy has, because they're not looking for, like, they want to do this. It's really more confirming. In the sales lingo, to me, I call that order taking. It's not really closing. You're not flipping a no to a yes. You're just, right, you're just kind of taking the order, a little bit of information. You're making them feel the warm and fuzzies, but that's all that it is. So I think that's a beautiful place to start. Then you can go to the warm and cool leads of Google ads, SEO, Facebook ads, where people are coming in going, what makes you more unique than the other couple people that I'm talking to and looking at? Where then you go, hey, I've been doing this. I've been closing people. I've got some confidence that I can do this, and then teaching them how to work those people. So over time, I would want the same, if not better, because I think as good as I am, I'm not a sales super master. Like, there's some phenomenal closers out there, and realizing that's a long game. I've gotten very good over time, but knowing you can always do better. So I would love to get someone in that could kind of hit it at that same spot and keep going.
As you look for people to fill those roles, are there like specific traits or experience or expectations that you have about applicants?
I think a lot is really being open to just speaking with people, kind of no agendas, truly wanting to help. I always said I'd never be in sales. I pictured sales as like this lazy used car guy, and always just said, I'm not dealing with it, right?
Yeah.
And then when I realized I was doing sales and closing and had started to pick it up pretty quickly, realized, oh my gosh, no, I'm not trying to I don't ever want someone to work with our firm that shouldn't be. But when I know we can help them, I feel like I owe it to them to make sure they understand that. And so it's that same kind of mindset of someone realizing, look, this is the exact thing we do. This feels good. You're the kind of person we'd want to work with. I'm going to work hard to try to get you in. But when you can't, or we're overpriced to them, I'm not here to just work at anyone and everyone, and I never want to. So I think that's the dynamic, is like a good person with integrity that can have a conversation and can convey the details, and in 20 or 30 minutes, get someone to say yeah.
Man, you bring up price in there, Andrew, and that's one of those like defining factors where when I'm working with an estate planning firm or even a family law practice, anywhere where you're having to quote the dollar amount, there's this interesting push and pull that I see get experienced by lawyers between, okay, well, if I push them, they will find the money. But at the same time, if they're the type of person who outright tells me that they're cost conscious at that level, like, I don't know that I can move my close percentage that much. How do you all, I mean, you kind of indicate a little bit hands off, but like, how much do you go for the, I'm going to push you a little bit on this.
Yeah.
So like literally, I'm going to push you, the potential client, into maybe being outside your comfort zone because we got to get this done.
Yeah, I want to present is this a cost issue or a dragging feet? And we find it in estate planning because these are not fun topics. So I will
Yeah.
push on that. On the Medicaid elder law, where we're talking about qualifying mom or dad for Medicaid, preserving assets. Again, we can show a ton of value. We might be able to help preserve 400,000 in assets for, what, $14,000, $15,000. I mean, the value's there. There's an
Yeah.
element of I'm not ready to accept that my dad has dementia and has to go to a nursing home. And so I'm trying to first that level. Is this a true cost issue where I need to show more value, or is this a I kind of don't want to do this? Because if it's a I don't want to do this, I do push that layer of, you don't have an estate plan right now. What happens if you die tomorrow coming home from work? Oh yeah, we would be screwed. Then we need to address that. And whether it's us or another firm, and I can kind of step back like, I'd love your business, but do you realize you need to address this? If we can get them to that point, then we can start working through the cost. But when someone comes in and goes, I thought a will was $100, just not the fit, that you're getting screened out early. I'm not going to take the time to try to see if I can show you value to do a $3,000 plan when you wanted the legal Zoom cost. Like, it's just not going to happen.
You should have a little kiosk in the lobby that is like, I'm going to go sit you over here. This is this website, Legal Zoom. Go ahead and spend about 20 minutes trying to fill this out. I'll be waiting in the back office whenever you're ready.
That comes up a lot. People will say, why should we use you versus something like
Yeah.
that? You just say, if you're comfortable reading the statutes, playing attorney, putting your attorney hat on, taking all the risk and responsibility that, you die once and then this is going to get carried out once. If you feel good taking all of that on, knock it out. It's not impossible to learn.
Yeah.
95% of the time they go, okay, valid point. I'll work with you guys. And every once in a while somebody goes, honestly, I think I can figure it out. Yeah, and honestly, yes, you can. So do it. That's fine.
One of the troubles I see for a lot of my clients is sometimes in their own head is the idea of what I sell, an estate plan, which costs a not insignificant amount of money. Depending on the person's framework, it's going to represent a significant portion of a car, right? Like, oh, that would be 50% of the vehicle I might purchase for my teenager who's getting his or her driver's license soon. And they think, well, see, I'm not in that luxury goods category. I'm in this, not exactly commodity, but a unsexy business, essentially. How do you guys handle either that yourselves or handle that mindset with your clients?
We really don't sell that we do documents, and we don't talk about it that way. That's one of the things we do. I give the analogy all the time, and I tell people, if you were going to build a house, right, you would go to a builder and you're going to start laying out blueprints, but you're really in your mind, the whole reason you're doing this, you're excited, you're going to think about, oh my gosh, we're going to do Christmas in this great room, how big of a Christmas tree, look, we've got the big ceilings, we can put the big tree in here, the dining room, we've got a big family, we want to make sure we can get a table for 12 in like normal, and could we throw an extra table for the big thing, right? You're thinking about the layout and what you're going to get. You shouldn't and don't get hung up over what type of hammer and saw the guy uses to go build it. So,
Yes.
Worrying about what clause goes in, what little detail for the will, that's for the team here to figure out. It's to get you to that end result of peace of mind that there's a plan in place that's going to do all the things you told us you want to do. So a lot of it's envisioning, you're not here. Do you want your kids scrambling? Do you want to make it easy for them? Are they in state, out of state? What are all those concerns? How can we make life easy for people when they've been through one of the most traumatic losses they're going to have? When people frame it that way, then they realize, wow, you're the guide through the entire thing. Yes, that's what we're here for. That's a reframe. Then people go, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't be hung up on how many pieces of lumber is this going to take to build this house. No, and when people want that detail, we're not the firm.
It's like a wedding, right? Push comes to shove, everyone says they have their budget, and then they're going, yeah, but I want to make sure it's the right photographer who's there. So that $700 is suddenly $3,500 for your photographer.
And that's what we find. It's, do you really want this done by someone who this is really what we do? Mm-hmm. Or do you want to save a couple bucks and go to the person who's going to do 4 or 5 wills this year, a DUI, the PI case when it comes in? That is the option that will save you money now. what's the cleanup effect on the family and additional cost mess to hope it was done right, and that's where you go, look, there's all kinds of cases we would never even dream of taking. Why? Because it's not what we do, and it's the same thing. And that's what works people through you're right, it's us, or then a very small chunk of firms in the area. And then it's what differentiates us. What kind of relationship can we build? Who do you just feel comfortable working with?
Okay, so I'm gonna do like a hard pivot. Dad said that if you do that again, I'm gonna drive us home, and he actually follows through on it. Pivot, which is I want to talk about estate planning firms, like in a coaching modality, because I think one thing that's really cool from the discussion that we had previously was talking about in the estate planning world, there's a lot of cozy, small, profitable, but job-like practices. And then there are firms that are aiming to scale, like what you and Tracy are doing. So you spoke to me a little bit about the journey you all have managed to, I think you told me you've managed to 10x the firm, right?
Like 9.5. I think this will be 10x in the next couple of months.
Look at how beautifully honest you were about that. You could have totally just pushed it to no, it's definitely 10x, right? You could have made a myth, and you're like, I'm a numbers guy. It's 9.5. Chill out there. But like, what do you see that difference, and what has improved for you overall? Like, I guess, can we make the case that every estate planning firm should at least attempt to scale and see the benefit in it?
I think so, and it's because of what you already said. They've created a job for themselves. That's fine, but you can't sell a job. That's not going to set up a retirement for that person. And so if you truly just want a job, you just don't want to work for someone else, I mean, maybe that's okay, but have you really thought through the next 10, 20, 30 years and where you want this to go? I think that conversation would take more people to go, I should probably at least scale a little bit. Because yes, you can do it all yourself, but when you go on vacation, then what happens? We've been there. We joke, we've got this picture of a bench outside Pirates of the Caribbean at Disney World, where we took our first big trip there year one, and Tracy sat there and took consult calls and worked on client stuff in between doing rides, because if she wasn't doing that, income was grinding to a halt because there was nobody else to do it. And now it's hit me up on Slack if you really need something. I'll check a message or two in the evening, but otherwise I'll see everybody in a week and a half. That's scaling lets you do that part. No scaling means it is just you. And more people need to have that conversation. Again, it's like the end result. Do you want to take a vacation and just check out for 2 weeks? Do you want to go to Europe for 90 days and still make money? You have to scale to do that one.
There's a lot, like right now there's so much being published about the virtues and glories of being the solopreneur, and I'm not against solopreneurs, but I mean you're really like touching a nerve there with that idea of, hey, when you scale, you unlock the ability to be gone for a week and a half. I think a lot of law firm owners hear that and say, yeah, that sounds great, Andrew, but I don't know where to begin on it. I'm doing $150,000 to $220,000 per year, roughing it out, doing the sales, doing the execution, maybe a VA paralegal. Where do I begin?
And those people are better than they think they are, right? Because there's a lot of folks that would kill to break the six-figure mark or struggle to. And it's funny because I think that's the exact piece. It's like, I do 150 or 200. How do I take it? You actually already have the building blocks figured out. You know how you're getting leads in, you're closing them, you're doing a good product, you're building a good name in the community. Let's just do all of that a little bit more. And it's not that you have to 10x, right? A team of, depending on how you're set up, 3 to 6 people can really offload a lot of pressure for you. And I think sometimes people think, I've got to scale and be 9 million, 35 employees, and if I'm not doing that, that doesn't work. And you really go, it just needs to be more than just you and a paralegal, or just you and the VA, and going 4 or 5 people, get another attorney in at some point, treat them well, start building it. And so from that, where do you start? Well, what are you good at? What is your most defined process? And you just kind of chunk it. And I like to take a segment. Do we focus lead generation and get more leads in? Do we then look at or closing? Like if you're not closing well, just start closing more of what you have. Or is it a value? Can you just get more value out of the people that you're getting in front of? Or, doing the work. You just pick an area and you maximize it to 80, 90%. But I'm all about the Pareto's law, 80-20, right? Like we're
Yeah.
not shooting for perfection on every single thing every single time. Get it better than where it is with a reasonable amount of effort, and then go to the next little vertical piece and scale that one up. Then all of a sudden you go, look, we doubled or tripled in size, and that was not that hard.
Yeah. It's amazing how just a little bit of elbow grease applied across a few areas goes a long way. I mean, look, there's a lot of distractions for law firm owners when it comes to the idea of scaling. There's, I don't know, 682 viable marketing strategies that they could theoretically, or tactics that they could test, 30 strategies that they could dig into, then the whole host of core principles that they've got to learn. Like someone comes to you and goes, I need to generate more leads. Where do I begin? What are you telling them?
I first want to see what's working. What are they doing? I mean, because usually they're not having a modicum of success with a total shotgun approach of just a tiny bit of, so that you go, oh, look, so you do understand relationships. You have figured out referrals, or you do have a good website and you're doing this organic SEO and you're bringing people in, or you're doing the webinars and Facebook ads, and that's all you're doing. Go, look, you're figuring out, look, you know more than you think. You understand funnels, webinars, Facebook ads. So what can you take and then chunk into the next piece? So usually it's where are you and what's working, what's similar. If they're doing SEO, Google ads could bring more in. If you're doing Facebook ads for webinars, you could push Facebook ads to other types of funnels to bring people in, or maximize your webinar funnel. And it's starting to work them through that to go, oh my gosh, we could get an easy 30 to 50% growth by just getting a little bit better at what you're already doing.
You used the F word. You used funnel.
I did.
Which means we have to talk, because actually I think, Andrew, that this is probably the first episode of the new version of the show where we've talked about the funnel specifically has been brought up. So I'm going to let you do it. Give me the primer on what a funnel is.
So you visualize an actual funnel, right? Wider at the top, small at the bottom. And the concept is you get a lot of people in on some low barrier to entry to get in front of them. Because once they're into the funnel, I have a way to talk to them and have a conversation with them. It might be social media. So it doesn't mean I'm necessarily picking up the phone, but I have now a way to communicate to them. But to do that, I must exchange something. So typically we're looking at the lead magnet, right? The ebook, the webinar, the video, something to say I need an email or phone number in exchange for this good. And once they're in, you just keep working them to see how much can I get them to spend, what needs do they have to work them down into paying client. All right. And then it almost goes back the other way too. Then it's like the hourglass portion then of evangelism. Will they talk about your brand? Will they help push people back into the funnel? It actually opens back up with more and more people helping get others in. But that's the funnel is, it might take 1,000 ebooks being given out to get 10 paying clients, right? And it's this whole, the bigger the funnel, the bigger the net you cast works me down. It becomes now a mathematical approach now of just pay X in advertising to work people through a system that I know functions.
But I know that you have the extra layer of that of paid traffic. I know that you do Google ads particularly well. So do you do Google ads actually drive to the funnel, or are you driving mostly to call for consult? Like, where do you send them?
So for years, it was just a landing page where call or schedule a Calendly for that consult, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I mean, recently, I came into the whole funnels, like there's more of a science behind this. And so now I've been building out, sure, we can offer that, but let's just make it easier. Here's just a book. Let's start having the conversation. Let's send you the soap opera email sequence and then send emails beyond that. I mean, it's now working through the whole thing. You go, this is a different game than we played before. But if somebody goes, I just want to call and set this up, I'm not going to limit you. But I know that of the traffic we get, a very small percentage is like, let's do it right now. And so it's, let's pull a bit more of that traffic in and start nurturing them.
It's funny. I can see out of the corner of my eye my traffic.com and expert secrets book sitting right over there. I mean, look, I'll use the word cult when it comes to ClickFunnels and Russell, and with no real pejorative context behind it. It just is like it's a belief system, but you see it proven time and time again. And I have noticed, Andrew, and I'm really glad that we're able to talk about this, because a lot of firms that at some point were taught this concept, maybe a decade ago, discovered it more through the Dan Kennedy space, back when Infusionsoft was really pushing it. A lot of them have walked away from it in the past 4 to 5 years in favor of, I'm just going to get people to follow me on social media, in favor of, all I have to do is use Story Brand. And nothing against Story Brand. I think Donald Miller is a genius, but it's forgetting this like core idea. So what got you to buy in on the idea of funnels?
You're gonna love this story. You're gonna love this story.
Sweet.
So, we have a mutual buddy, Andrew Ayers, and
Yep.
Andrew posted on social media one day, got my linchpin book from Russell, and I don't know why I just messaged him and went, "Is it good?" He's like, "Yeah, so far it's good, and it's free." He sent me the link to the funnel for Russell's, free plus shipping. I'm like, yeah, I've spent money on stuff that I've spent dumb amounts of money on things that, I don't read, don't really watch. What's
Me
$10
too.
or $15 for this? I'll try it. Got it. It came. And when I flipped through on just a quick skim of like, what is this linchpin thing this guy's talking about? On a 5-minute skim, I went, there's something different about this book. Went home, read it again. And it made all these references to the expert books. So I went, okay, I'm in. I bought all 3 expert books, got a ClickFunnels.
Yeah, you did.
And just was like, I am just enamored with the concept of this, that it's what I've been trying to build, and that like it exists, because my brain thought this way for the longest time. It was, what are the actions you can take? But I didn't understand what they were. And now it's so clearly laid out to go, oh my gosh, this is it. So it all started with just a picture on social media of the new linchpin book.
Oh my God, there's like 6 different major concepts that we could talk about in there, starting from the power of sharing your resources and it affecting other people, all the way down into like going all in. I remember you and I had an exchange on LinkedIn where you talked about like staying up late building funnels. Have you seen anything in your funnel construction so far that either ups the process, that you can trim the fat on? Like what's producing for you?
So it is still early, but it's starting to build now, though. So back to the whole sales part of our conversation earlier, I'm going to be able to automate and work a narrative that's automated to replace a portion, not the whole thing, but a portion of what I do. And you start realizing that me and my current sales role, but ultimately someone else, will now have a larger impact with more better people, because we're going to be able to build this narrative and warm them up or push them out through an automated process.
Automation, again, one of those things that a decade ago got really, really hot, cooled off a little bit. I'm starting to hear more people talk about it now, but it does butt up against the whole, hey, I'm supposed to also have the human relationship side, and that's been really emphasized. Again, social media being heavily emphasized, but it has left out this automation portion. So I'm really curious, zooming in on that, Andrew, when you start building the follow-up sequences, because you kind of talked a little bit about that earlier, mentioned it, I always want to know, what type of frequency are you looking at in following up with people?
So I'll do the kind of pre-ClickFunnels piece. When it was somebody would call into the firm, schedule a meeting, we would drip out, and in within 10 or 15 minutes of like, great to meet you, see you on my calendar, whatever, shoot out. Then 24 hours later, here's a video about our firm, just getting them excited. Have the call, because our call was usually within 24 to 48 hours anyways. And then from there, push them into usually we're sending an engagement letter if they don't already engage, and then push them a whole sequence of a lot of touch points to get them to engage. ClickFunnels now, it's starting to go, hey, they got an ebook from us. And so I do use the Russell's concept of the soap opera of, at first email right away, here's what you asked for, here it is. And then trickling out 4 to 5 straight days of a story. The soap opera, right? The cliffhanger into the next day, all of these open cycles that make somebody go, oh, that was interesting. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't understand that this could apply to me this way. Then we move into 1 to 2 emails a week, typically.
Okay. I mean, still, that's better than a lot that only do like a monthly email.
Yeah, right. And I know people talk about no, go daily, like you won't push them away. And I still have that apprehension I mean, it wasn't that long ago we didn't send any. So to try to be sending stuff on a weekly basis, and if it gets a little crazy, we go to 12 days, but trying to keep it around the 5 to 7, 5 to 8 day kind of window. And realizing, especially when we're targeting folks, I'll say 55 to 75, they look at email, in my opinion, differently than maybe we do. Like, I just get bombarded with stuff. I do read less of the emails. I know what I'm looking for in the ones I want. But when I talk to people like my parents or like my parents' age, it's much more like, did you know so-and-so sent me this email? Like, Mom, that's an automated email that you and 9,000 other people got. Yeah. But they don't see that side of it. And so you can leverage that depending if that is your demographic.
There is, like, for people who are like marketing nerds like the two of us, we definitely have some type of bias and some type of filter.
Yes.
But it's interesting in working with lawyers who will often say like, oh, my email is bombarded, da, da, da. And it's funny how they still make a lot of major buying decisions themselves based on emails that they receive, right? Like, we need to see that as a cue that email marketing is still a magnificently powerful force. Do you all do any text message marketing?
Not marketing. We just started texting with clients or leads, even just to help on a very one-to-one capacity. That's kind of on my radar because I think about it. My inbox is so dang flooded now. Text is like a much more direct, you're going to get in front of me. I think the way email was, we'll say 20 years ago, right? When you're like, oh, I got an email today. It's like, oh, I got a text. So I think texting is just, they're trickling over time. It used to be USPS mail. Then it was email. I think it's texting, and you're seeing more junk in text. I think at some point the next wave will be DMs.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, the whole... you can almost look at it like, what do you need to put the most effort into right now? Like, effort tends to have at least a correlative positive outcome, because for a long time, right, there are a few people who were doing it, even to do the like mass broadcast text. It was not super easy to set up, to get that list together, to push it out the door. It cost a little bit more. Costs have come down, so it is a next generation, next wave. I love that you're talking about that. Whereas in the past, email even then was, I mean, Russell has his own origin story. You had to buy like the email list on CDs, and you had to get that uploaded. You had to find a sender. There was some serious risk with all of it. And now DMs are definitely the next level. I love that you're bringing that up, because it is in order to do that, you have to go and find the person. You have to be connected with them. And now you have to send them specific information, right? Effort creates outcome.
And I think it's also that personal touch, right? Right now, I don't expect anyone to DM me that's not kind of in that more inner circle. Yeah. Texting now, like if you said, what's the most private way to message you? Facebook Messenger, LinkedIn Messenger, because I will not I get less spam there than I get to my text messages at this point. So I know there's my numbers out there, and I'm going to get a stupid message that what the heck is this? Oh my God, you're selling me something. I don't want to hear it. I get less of that I don't get that. I get so much less of that on Instagram. Maybe the spam filter, I guess, kind of kicks it out, because they are there, but I don't really see them. So that filtering mechanism is functioning better in the DMs, I think. And so I think that's why that's going to be the next level, is if you have that connection, that's a bit of a doorway to say, let's have a conversation. And it's like, oh, it's very direct.
I mean, even a conversation like what you and I started having really was facilitated because of LinkedIn and messaging on there, right? It is a space where, as long as you're willing to reach out and not do the very obviously, my VA who I'm paying $4 an hour to mass message on this thing, right? Those don't work. Well, I shouldn't say don't work. That's not fair to say. They just probably are not right for most law firms.
Yeah, I mean, because I do have to say, it gets done so much, it has to be working. But
exactly.
But it definitely ruins, it's not just a yes or no. If it's a yes, that's good. When it's a no, it's usually, and I don't ever want to interface with you again. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the problem, is when it's a little bit softer, your yeses are yeses, but your nos, could you flip them to a yes later with real good sales and marketing? And I think that's where, when people, come off with the pitch slap and things like that, off the gate in LinkedIn. It's just too much for people. People just block you, and there's never a hope again. Where when you build a relationship, we're playing a long game. It might not happen in the next 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks. It's what about in 2 years?
Yeah. And that is also getting back to the idea of the power of the funnel. Is it is designed to be this: you're opting into my universe, which means you're getting some messages from me. We're going to build a relationship. It was funny. I was actually just talking, actually, no joke, 15 minutes before we started recording this, I was talking with a private client who'd done a strategy day with me. It was our 30-day follow-up call, and we were talking about some of these exact issues of people opting in and frequency. And the comparison that I made was like, in spycraft, one of the things I remember a buddy of mine talking about was when people look to turn an agent of interest in another country, one of the things that they would do is frequent the same spaces that individual would frequent long before ever making an approach on them, because it created a proximity effect that created a level of trust. Oh, you're going to the same space as me? Oh, I'm seeing you every day. And that alone would have a positive impact on the ability to gather intelligence. And that's just like literally being in the same place as another person. Imagine if you're sending messages to the individual regularly. Like, that's huge affinity, proximity effect that no one takes advantage of for the most part.
And I think it's the shared interest component. I know when we talked, I saw your and you can see it here, like your iMac in the background, or, right? And you go, are you an Apple guy? Me too.
Oh, yeah.
It builds a level of trust. And so it's when you find those commonalities with people, and that's a long game, right? Talking about a MacBook, is not going to close somebody, but you realize over time, you go, oh my gosh, we've got a couple of things in common now. I noticed this story that you share, and I have a similar story. I'd like to talk to you about it. Back to the spycraft thing, that's a huge component of it. It's being there, showing up the same places, and then going, wow, we are both into watches, or we're both into the same types of cars, or we both like to take the same kinds of vacations. And all of a sudden you build a level of trust that then you could say, would you be interested in this thing that I could help you with?
There's a great copywriter, Joseph Sugarman, who wrote the Adweek Copywriting Handbook, which was built off of these amazing seminars that he gave back, I think in the late 90s. And one of the things that he emphasizes about great copywriters in particular is they tend to have a very diverse set of interests and lots of different hobbies, because what they have is just interest in things, and they know what it feels like to be interested and to be interesting as well. Like when we talk about these emails going out, when we talk about publishing on social media, if you want to create that connective tissue, you can't do it by saying nothing. If you want to see, are there other fishermen in my area who I can connect with? Well, you need to talk about actually fishing. You can't wait until they're just in for the consultation to then happen to bring up a fishing analogy. Publish it out there, my goodness.
And then I think that lets you build such an amazing practice, here in the law firm space, but in any vertical at this point, social media lets you be authentic. And I think particularly lawyers go, well, I'm in the public space. I've got to be Switzerland. Well, Switzerland's kind of boring. I'm not saying go be a jerk about stuff all the way in the extremes, but like, who are you and what do you do is such an important thing, because now people can be drawn into, oh my gosh, you've got a family too, and kids and vacation and like being around them, and you guys do a cabin on a lake. Us too. Wow. I feel like I know you. I would like to work with you. It's not so much that you're always repelling. You will repel some people, but you really attract strongly good folks. And at the end of the day, there's like 400 million, 380 million Americans or something. You're not going to work with all of them. Find the ones that are hyper dialed into you and do amazing work for them.
Exactly. Oh my God. I actually do want to ask this question before we go into the last little phase here, because I think it's really important for all the estate planners who listen to this show, which is in the work that you're doing in Vertex League with estate planning firms, what are the top 1 to 3 major issues that you work to solve early on with them?
Well, the top 1 to 3 issues would be more leads, but specifically like a better cadence, right? It's oftentimes they can get leads, they can get revenue, but it can be kind of like it can peak a little bit, or they go, hey, I had like a great month and then I didn't. I kind of don't know why. So it's elevating, getting more leads, ultimately more clients. But there's an element too of, can we get you to what is your best month or 80% of your best month, but that 12 months in a row? Oh my gosh, that would de-stress the life. Cool. So lots in the marketing world of like, let's start evening things out, finding what's working and doing that. The other areas then are systems. Like you have a system, you might not even realize you do. You have ways you do things. Start documenting. Start then refining it. Start putting it to a mechanism that then someone else could help you with it. And then the other big area is if you don't have a team, you're probably going to want at least a VA or an admin at some point. So start understanding the leadership aspect. Most people do come in with one or two people and they go, I feel like, I can't get them to work, or there's some kind of struggle somewhere, or they're just not quite as good as they had been. It's a leadership issue. It's not them. It's you. So learn how to lead, learn how to motivate, and just watch you get more productivity out of the team you already have. It's not necessarily go hire the next person. It's why don't we fix what we've got and then go from there. So we spend so much time in leads and marketing, building out more systems for folks and getting that refined and written down. I had an old mentor a long time ago. If you write it down and you can't write it down, it's because you don't understand it.
There you go. It's oh man, I remember a discussion with someone some time ago where they said you need to learn it, then you need to do it, and then you need to teach it, and that's how you lock it in.
Yes. So it's that same kind of thing of, if you go, well, I get it, but I just couldn't explain it to someone. Why? Then how? I mean, let's get a pot of coffee. I've got 10 hours. Like, you're telling me if we sat here for the next 18 hours, you could not convey this to me. Then you don't understand what you're doing. You should be able to get it broken down. It might take us 90 minutes, but you should be able to go, look, this is how I do A to Z, this thing. That's a system. And when people go, I can't, I go, you're either politely, you're being lazy, or you don't actually know what you're doing. And we need to figure out which one it is, because laziness, we're just going to get it written down. If not, we need to actually figure out what are the steps, what are the branches, and start documenting.
Yeah, all this stuff is definitely not quite as easy as it ever sounds, right? Like people like you and me, we're good at breaking it down into, okay, learn it, do it, teach it, and we fully understand with every firm that we work with that like there are hiccups. You get dragged back into the legal work. I appreciate, Andrew, that you talked about in marketing, part of the things that you're looking for is generating consistency. So that way it's not, hey, we're going to go hard in the paint on Facebook ad to webinar strategy for the next 3 months. We're going to burn your cash flow to the ground. You're not going to end up being as good at monetizing those leads as you thought you were. And suddenly you're turning everything off for 6 months.
Yeah. I mean, because if you've got a team, your team currently can do 30,000 in revenue. It does not behoove us to bring 100,000 in tomorrow. No way is that helpful to anybody, right? It's be consistently at 35 or 40,000 and go, okay, we're good, we're the right kind of busy, and then go, do you want to scale? Do you want to grow? Let's do a 10 or 20% boost. Let's think about the next people that we're going to hire, and you kind of increment and you go, no, the growth is slower, but it functions better because you don't have pissed off clients or people that you can't facilitate. You do it methodically.
Yes, methodically. I mean, that's where Alex Hormozy, I think, gets it right most of the time, where he says, good ideas applied over a long enough duration of time yield success. Most people are not afraid of the idea. They're afraid of the time. But how many times do we look back in life and, someone might say, oh my God, Andrew, you're really good at the selling thing. And you're like, well, I just ended up doing it.
Yes.
And I'd be bad at it if I were just starting it today.
100%. There's Hormozy, other folks in this space talk about there's a component of it just takes time. You cannot rush it. It just takes a number of repetitions. I mean, I love Alex Hormozy and what he does in the business space and how much he gives. It's funny, you're going to laugh, but I love his correlation of business to his obsession with his calves, because you cannot develop, right? He has these monster calves, and it's really funny. But think about it. Is there a harder muscle group to overly develop?
No, the calves are the joke of the bodybuilding world. They're so hard to deal with.
It's so hard. And it's because he's like, this doesn't just turn on after 6 weeks of working it. This took years and years and years and years, and then a few more years, and realizing there's elements in your business that are just going to take years too. So you want to get on the right path. You want to get good mentors and good help and make it a great path. It's still 12,000 miles long, and we can only go so fast.
Yep. I mean, look, it helps, obviously, like you said, to have mentors, to have coaches, to have people leading you through this space. That way you can apply, you can speed it up to a degree, but the success that you will achieve is within you if you are willing to apply the time. You can move faster and have it be a better overall result by working with people. I mean, like Andrew, you're one of those people. So before I ask you the last question, if people are interested in learning more about you, about Vertex League, or just connecting with you, where's the best place for them to go?
I'm super active on social media. I tell people, give me a follow on LinkedIn or Instagram, Andrew Zihmer. I'm all over it. And, reach out, just follow the content. Again, if you like what I post, you might like the next level. Somebody goes, oh, I don't like this, or I don't like the mindset or different pieces that you're working on. That's okay. Again, there's a flavor for everybody.
Absolutely. Okay, Andrew, final question for you, and it's a little bit of a three-parter, and that is, what are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
Okay. So reading, I am currently on Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson.
Nice.
So I'm wrapping up the kind of 4-part series of the 3 Secrets and Linchpin book. So that's what I'm currently reading. Watching, we are most of the way through, I'm going to goof up the name, is it Painkiller? It's the Matthew Broderick series on...
Painkiller or Painkillers, yeah.
Yeah. The opioid epidemic stuff that Purdue Pharma got into and all of that. So again, right, generationally, like knowing that happened, but now seeing like what was going on, it's been fascinating to watch that.
Nice.
And then what was the third one?
Listening to.
I am a huge Alex Hormozy podcast fan. I listen to that. I do listen to a lot of music. I do at some points just go, I need to like shut off and give myself the break of it's okay to have an 8-minute drive to work and just listen to music. So a lot of times I am listening to early 2000s rap and country and pop, or just things that we used to listen to back I was in a fraternity.
There you go.
So, the Pike House basement music, and kind of put that on and go, those were some good fun days. And let's just listen to that all over again.
There you go. Nothing... sadly enough, and it happens to every generation when I don't know if you've turned on the radio, but when you turn on the radio and they finally start like half referring to the music that you listen to as like, one of those classics back from 2003, and you're like, classic, excuse me?
Yes, I caught Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind on an oldies station recently.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was painful.
It happens to all of us. Time is inevitable. Well, Andrew, I'm sure I'm going to have you back on the show so that way we can further this discussion. I appreciate your time, wisdom, knowledge, insight here. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you. This was great.
Awesome. And I will see you all in the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.